What if doing less would actually make you more creative, more effective, and maybe even more liked at a dinner party? Well, in this episode, I'm going to unpack the power of elimination and why doing less actually can give you more. And if you hang around, I'm also going to share in a bonus a super cool technique to help you tap into the power of neurodivergence. Welcome to the Nils Vesk Show, where every episode is designed to help you think faster, solve problems creatively, and generate breakthrough ideas to catapult your success. G'day, thanks for joining us. You've probably heard of the saying, less is more. Now, it's pretty popular in the minimalist design ethos and things like that. Or maybe it's great when someone's justifying why they forgot your birthday card or birthday present. But the reality is, in the world of innovation and productivity, subtraction or elimination can actually be your secret superpower to getting more stuff done and also to getting great results through a better service, a better process, or a better product. So here's a cold, hard, simple truth that when we take things away, it forces us to do something different. And the same can be said for our thinking. If we're forced to take away a component, a step, an element, or the way we might normally do it, it forces our brain to look for new combinations, new ways to solve that particular problem. And that is why elimination, or as you might have heard before, less is actually more, can not only create creative ideas, but actually get us better results. And if you've ever run out of clean clothes and you've somehow managed to show up super stylish, you know exactly what I'm going to be talking about. To make some sense of this, I want to take you back in my career. I think it was 2015. I had the good fortune of working in Taipei in Taiwan for the first time with one of my clients, amazing clients by the name of Mandarin Oriental. Now, if you've never heard of them before, they are a 5-star luxury hotel chain. Too expensive for me to ever stay at. That's not quite true. And yet, when I was going to do some work, I think I was flying in. That's right. I was flying in. I think I'd been working in America first, and I flew straight there. I was tired. I was jet lagged. And as we were going to this hotel, I was thinking, oh gosh, dreading the old check-in experience. Go in, pull out your passport, your ID, credit card, all of that sort of stuff while you wait in a checkout, into the concierge line. And when I arrived there, lo and behold, the doorman opened the door, which is, great. Oh, hello, Mr. Vesk, how are you? Welcome. I was like, well, Mr. Vesk, how did they know who I was? Please come with me, sir. And someone else grabbed the bag. And as that was happening, a concierge person came out and again greeted me by name. Hi, Mr. Vesk. Please follow me this way. And I thought, here we go. Now we're going to go to the old checkout reception desk there. But no, she took me towards the elevator. I thought, this is different. Like maybe the check-in isn't on a different level. And then sort of up the elevator, she asked me a few questions, a little bit of chit-chat. And then, led down the hallway to a room, and she led me in there and she said, please take a seat, Mr. Vesk. And she had a pot of hot tea and some refreshments there, and started to ask me a couple of questions and said, look, Mr. Vesk, I know. She started to ask me a few questions like, Mr. Vesk, I know it can be a bit confusing sometimes getting yourself orientated with a room. Let me tell you where some of the lights are. Now, I don't know about you, but light switches sometimes just do not make sense. I think I'm kind of okay. I think I've got an average level of intelligence, but I have no idea how sometimes these lights work in hotel rooms. Anyway, so she took me through those, how the blinds work, all of the details, what the hotel's up there. And then finally, it was just like, hey, she pulled out a smart tablet and said, can you just sign here? And the job was done. There was no 20-point ID checks frisking up there and up on the wall, spread your legs, let's look out if you're going to steal the bathrobes or anything else. It was a totally seamless experience. And when I think of that experience, it reminds me of the power of elimination, of less is more. If you can get rid of the components that have the most complication or the most frustration, the most annoying things for your customers or even for your team, you are going to create a more seamless, amazing experiences, which is exactly what the Mandarin Oriental did with that check-in experience. Less is more. All right, so let's go now from a hotel to a furniture store. And I want to talk to you about IKEA. Now, I'm sure unless you've been living as a hermit in a cave for the last 20, 50 years, I think 50 years at least in Australia, IKEA has been around, then you will understand that IKEA are great innovators. And one of the things that they asked themselves so many years, so many decades ago was, what if we got rid of assembling furniture? Now, that might seem pretty obvious nowadays that you create a flat pack, but they were one of the first people to really think about, well, what if we reduced our costs by just allowing people to make the furniture themselves? So we'll give them the whole package and we'll make it really simple. All you need is an Allen key, which we'll provide you with, or a screwdriver. And the rest is basic, simple 101 steps in there and directions to make your furniture in there. Simple question, what if we were to get rid of assembling our furniture? And we could delve into so many more things that they've eliminated, but I think that's a really cool example. Something else, right in this studio that we're in, you can't quite see it right now, but if I look up the ceilings, I'm a designer by background. My first job was working as an interior designer for an amusement design company for a while. And one of the things we remember asking was, what can we remove that will make things more elegant to the eyes? And when I look up at our ceiling here, where the wall meets the ceiling, there is no cornice. There is no piece around that. We created a channel. I think it was like a P52 channel, and it has a shadow line. So it looks almost like it's floating in a very elegant design. Again, just by daring to ask the question, what if we were to eliminate a component? Another example that comes to mind of the power of elimination. In Australia, I'm sure in the UK and other countries, America as well, they have this. What if we were to get on a bus, a train, or a ferry, but without a ticket? Well, that's exactly what we can do here, at least where I live in Sydney in New South Wales. You could just use your credit card or a smartphone device and tap on and tap off, eliminating the need to line up for a ticket. You just get in there and make it happen. I love that type of stuff. Let's use a big example, Airbnb. What if we were to have a hotel without a hotel premises? Well, that's ridiculous. A hotel without a hotel. What was it? Let's use other people's rooms. Let's use your house. Let's use your apartment or your condominium to make that happen. These types of questions often seem, I guess, in hindsight, totally logical. Like, oh yeah, of course Airbnb was obvious, don't need to have a hotel. Of course, it seems obvious to not have to buy for a ticket and the sort. And yet, when you really think about it, when people made those decisions and thought that way, it would have been considered unorthodox and even radical at the time. So, why this is so important is that when we dare ourselves to eliminate, we come up with groundbreaking ideas. Another example that comes to mind is Apple. One of the first stores I remember said, what if we didn't have a checkout counter? Because you don't necessarily have to go to a counter. They would have people walking around and you could basically get everything sorted by the roaming staff out there. Something else that comes to mind, a Dutch bank, ING, were the first bank ever to say, what if we had a bank without a commercial bank and customer retail bank without having face-to-face service? Another thing that comes to mind, Cirque du Soleil. They are one of the most successful circus franchises in the world, were daring enough to ask the question, what if we had a circus without animals? So Even though they removed the elephants and added French clowns and lasers and the stuff. Now, I guess you could probably call it art, but very, very popular and very, very successful. It also, when I think of this power of elimination, I get so excited about it. It reminds me of, what was his name? Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Wow, that kind of makes me sound like I can recite 16th century French poetry, but no, he said famously that perfection is achieved when there is nothing left to take away. And I think the same can be said about our processes. Where you're working, I'm sure there are processes that are more complex than they need to be. I'm sure there are more forms that need to be filled out than need to be filled out. If you really want to step up in your career, if you really want to get some results, I think it's time you think about making that decision. To take the time to look at maybe what would happen if we were to eliminate that component. I think it was probably about 18, 17 years ago, I made a decision to have a business without a premises and without having full-time staff working in the office with me. So we got rid of the office. I work wherever I go. And at the time, I hired someone in Mauritius to work as my virtual assistant. And back then, there weren't many people doing that. VAs weren't really well known back then. But I've continued in that same manner of not having a staff working with me, not having premises, and the rest is history. I know even just at the moment, our family have asked a question, what if we didn't have to live in the city? And I'm excited to say we're going to be moving out into the country to still do the work that we do, helping people like yourselves out there. So I digress. Let's bring this back to you and your world. Really think about what are some of those things that you could remove. What if you couldn't have a meeting every week? Or what if you couldn't have a particular feature or component of a product or service? What if you could eliminate a particular task or component? When we force ourselves to look at eliminating, you can create some great results. Now, before we move on to the bonus that I promised around neurodivergence, I want to tell you about a super cool program that you may not be familiar with called Idea Maverick. Now, we made this program specifically for people like you who have found that perhaps they've been left out a little bit at work. Maybe they're not being invited to the most important meetings. Maybe you don't feel as fast on your feet when it comes to thinking or solving a problem, or you just really want to take your career to the next level. And if you want to find out more, it's a 5-week online program. Well, you can actually do it in as quickly or as long as you want to take. You've got 12 months access, full with great videos, tools and techniques, and group mentoring sessions as well like that. Very, very affordable. You can find out more at ideamaverick.com. So check it out. All right. Let's come back to the bonus. And I want to share with you a very powerful technique to strengthen your neurodivergence. Now, I'm sure you've heard of that term, neurodivergence. If you haven't, it's just basically some people think quite differently to other people. And one of the reasons why I think neurodivergence is so important is that neurodivergent thinkers, and funnily enough, often naturally remove steps that other people will overcomplicate. And a simpler way to think about neurodivergence and how you can strengthen yours is how can you get a different perspective, or how could you see something from a different viewpoint? I often remember that I kind of liken this to most people solve a problem on the ground floor. And at the ground floor, all you really see, if you look out the windows, is other buildings, the street, and everything else. But if you take yourself higher and higher and higher, then you start to get more of a bird's eye view of the lay of the land around you. And the simplest way that we can do this is not to step into someone else's shoes, because I think that would be kind of creepy. It's just imagine You are someone else, and that could be a role or it could be an actual person. So I often like to think of a buddy of mine, Craig, Dr. Craig, amazing gastrointestinal surgeon, and I love the way that he thinks. So every now and then I'll go, what would Dr. Craig do in this situation? I've got another guy I know who's an amazing property developer, and I'll go, well, what would Pip do when he would be looking at developing these 20 houses into some, new mini suburban or executive corporate environment or space or place? What would a pilot do? What would a TV or movie producer do? I love the way that they think, because they have a company that starts and finishes before the project and after the project. So by stepping into either a role or into an actual person, you might think of someone like, I do often like to imagine I'm putting on high heels and step into the shoes of someone like Oprah. Hang on, I said that would be creepy. I try and imagine I'm in the mindset of someone like Oprah, who not only was she an amazing TV host, but she was a producer and produced movies and programs and all kinds of different things. So I'm sure you're getting the point by now. All it comes down to really is changing your perception. So I hope that helps to help you strengthen your neurodivergence. So it's about, okay, if everyone's thinking about this, how could I approach it differently? Or how would someone else think about this? And start to share some of those thoughts, and you'll start to get groundbreaking insights. Insights lead to ideas, which lead to brilliant innovations and commercial results. Thanks so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure. Hope to see you again in the future. And if you like it, please leave us a comment, give us a like, and shoot through any questions or topics that you'd like me to cover in the future. Thanks so much.